Okay, boys and girls, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to solve algebraic expressions with a variable. So what we need to do is, if you remember in class, in our class notes that you have, is the first step is to isolate a variable. That means get it by itself. So you have to get it all by itself, and to do that you need to use the inverse operation. Inverse operation means the opposite operation what's going on. So if you're adding, let's say 5 to x, the inverse means to subtract. If you divide, the inverse is multiplication. And then you must balance the equation and show all of your work. So let's do a couple here. So the first one I want to do is, and I know we did this in class, but I just want to do it for review, is x plus 8 equals 18. Now I know right off the bat you are smart enough to realize it's 10 plus 8 equals 18 and x would equal 10. But we're going to get much more difficult problems later on this year. So what I need you to do is just solve it step by step for now, and then you'll see it will help you later on throughout the school year. So if I have x plus 8 equals 18, the first step is to isolate the variable, so I need to get x by itself. To do that, I do the inverse operation. So if I see plus 8, I know I need to subtract. So I'm going to subtract 8. Whatever I do on this side of the equation, I must do it on this side. So I'm going to subtract 8 on this side. So what happens is this. If you see, 8 minus 8 is really 0. So it's going to be x is left over equals 18 minus 8, and 18 minus 8 is 10. So the answer would be 10. Now, you could check this by taking 10 and substituting it in for x. So 10 plus 8 equals 18, and that checks out because 10 plus 8 is 18, so that one works. Okay, so let's look at a couple more from classwork, then we're going to look at the homework. So let's look at one now that has subtraction. So let's do p minus 5. Well, let's actually do number 11. So number 11 says x minus 9 equals 2. First step, isolate the variable. So I see that we have right here, though, we have minus 9. So what I need to do is the inverse operation. So the inverse operation is add 9. So it's going to be plus 9. Whatever you do on this side of the equation, you do on this side. So plus 9. These cancel out because 9 minus 9 is 0. So x will equal 2 plus 9, which is 11. Stick 11 back in the equation. 11 minus 9 equals 2. It does, so it checks out. Okay, so let's look at another one. Let's look at one where the expression or the equation looks a little bit backwards. So we have 24 equals n plus 13. So the first step is to isolate the variable. Let me just get my pen here. So I see n plus 13. So what I need to do is the inverse operation. So I'm going to subtract here. So minus 13 on this side of the equation. So on this side, I must also do minus 13 to balance it. 13 minus 13 is 0, so I have n left, equals 24 minus 13 is 11. So now let's stick 11 back into the equation. So 24 equals, 11, not n. Let me erase that. So 24 equals 11 plus 13, and 11 plus 13 is 24. So 24 equals 24, which is good. Okay, so let's look at a couple from homework here. I'm going to do 2 of them for you. So let's look at number 11. Number 11 says x minus 11 equals 9. So the first step, what you need to do is isolate the variable. So to isolate the variable, what we're going to do is, I see x minus 11, so I know I have to do the inverse operation, which means add 11. So I add 11 to each side of the equation. And when I do that, I have x, 11 and 11, 11 minus 11 cancel out, equals 9 plus 11, which is 20. Then I substitute 20 back into my equation. So 20 minus 11 equals 9. 20 minus 11 is 9. 9 equals 9. So that checks out, and we're good. Okay, so we're going to try 21, which is a little bit tricky. So if I look at, I have x minus 18. So right away, I know I have to add 18 because it's subtracting. So if I add 18 to both sides, I see that I have x, these cancel out, equals 18 minus negative 2 plus 18. So if I look at negative 2 plus 18, one's negative, one's positive, and you should know that what we need to do with when it's one negative, one positive, we subtract. Once we subtract, I get 16. What you need to do is you take the sign of the biggest absolute value. So the biggest absolute value would be 18. 18 is bigger than 2, and the sign for 18 is positive, so the answer is positive. So it's x equals 16. So let's put it back into the equation and make sure this works out. So it's 16 minus 18 equals a negative 2. Now if you remember from the other day, when you have 16 minus 18, what we do is change the minus or subtraction to a plus, and then you change the sign of the next number, which is you change it from a positive 18 to a negative 18. So now I have 16 plus a negative 18. So again, if one's positive, one's negative, what you do is subtract. So I subtract, I get 2. But you always take the sign of the bigger absolute value. Well, the bigger absolute value would be 18. 18 is bigger than 16, and the sign for 18 is negative. So it's negative 2 equals negative 2. We're good. So then we're done. Okay? Do your best, and we'll go over it tomorrow.